The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched wide like a massive bowl carved from black stone. 12 different alien species sat in their designated seats, each one representing worlds that spanned across the galaxy. The air hummed with translation devices that turned every word into sounds each species could understand. Ambassador Zektar walked slowly to the center platform. His scaled green skin glistened under the bright lights, and his long tail dragged. Behind him on the smooth floor, in his clawed hands, he held a data pad that contained information about a species called humans. The information made him afraid. The other council members watched him with different types of eyes. Some had 4 eyes, others had 6, and a few had compound eyes like insects. All of them looked bored. They had called this meeting to discuss what to do about the human problem, and most of them had already made up their minds. Zektar cleared his throat, making a sound like grinding stones. "Honored council members," he began, his voice shaking slightly. "I stand before you today to speak about the humans of Earth. I have studied them for many years, and I must warn you about what they are capable of." Counselor Vexarn from the Dominion Alliance made a snorting sound. He was a large creature with purple skin and 4 arms crossed over his massive chest. "One small world with primitive technology," he said with a voice like thunder. "Why should we fear such weak beings?" Other council members nodded in agreement. They had seen the reports about Earth. The humans had only recently developed nuclear weapons and basic space travel. Compared to the council species, who had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, humans seemed like children playing with toys. But Zektar shook his head violently. His yellow eyes grew wide with fear. "You do not understand what I have seen. Yes, they are young and their technology is simple, but they have something we do not. They have a fire inside them that burns hotter than any star." High Arbiter Kelenoth raised one of his crystal arms for silence. He was the oldest being in the council, his body made of living crystal that had grown over millions of years. "When?" He spoke. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Tell us what makes these humans so special, Ambassador Zektar." Zektar touched his datapad, and images appeared in the air above the platform. The images showed humans in different situations throughout their history. There were pictures of humans fighting wars, building cities, exploring dangerous places, and surviving disasters that would have killed most other species. "Look at their history," Zektar said, pointing at the images. "They fight wars that last for years, sometimes decades. They never give up, even when they are losing. They adapt to any environment, from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. They take risks that no other species would even consider." One image showed human soldiers in a place called Stalingrad, fighting house by house in a ruined city during something called World War II. Another showed humans climbing the tallest mountain on their world, just because it was there. A third showed humans diving to the bottom of their oceans in metal boxes, exploring places where the pressure could crush any normal being. "This means nothing," said Counselor Lexara, "a being that looked like a walking tree with too many branches. All species have warriors and explorers. What makes humans different?" Zektar's tail lashed back and forth, showing his growing frustration. "It is not just their warriors or explorers. It is all of them. Every human has this drive to survive and overcome. When you corner them, when you threaten everything they care about, they become something beyond normal understanding." He changed the images to show more recent human activities. There were pictures of their early space missions, where humans had strapped themselves to massive rockets just to touch the moon. There were images of human scientists working day and night to solve problems, and human engineers building things. That should have been impossible. They sent their people to their moon using technology that barely worked, Zektar continued. They did this not for resources or territory, but just to prove they could do it. They take risks that would terrify our bravest soldiers. Counselor Vexon laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a mountain. So they are reckless fools. That makes them easier to defeat, not harder. No. Zektar shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. You do not see what I see. Their recklessness is not foolishness. It is courage mixed with intelligence. They learn from every failure, and they never make the same mistake twice. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Some council members shifted in their seats, beginning to feel uncomfortable. But most still looked unconvinced. High Arbiter Kelenoth spoke again. What exactly are you asking us to do, Ambassador Zektar? Leave them alone, Zektar said simply. Let them develop in peace. Do not threaten them. Do not attack them. And do not try to control them. If you do any of these things, you will regret it for the rest of your existence. The silence stretched longer this time. Then Counselor Vexarn stood up, all four of his arms spread wide. The humans have been expanding their influence too quickly. They make contact with other species without asking our permission. They refuse to follow galactic law. They are a threat to the order we have maintained for thousands of years. Other council members began to murmur in agreement. They spoke of human ships exploring nearby star systems, of human messages being broadcast across space, of human technology advancing faster than any species in recorded history. They must be brought under control, said Counselor Thexara. All species must follow council law. There can be no exceptions. Zektar tried one more time. Please listen to what I am telling you. I have watched them fight among themselves, and even their civil wars are more brutal and creative than anything we have seen. They have weapons that can destroy their entire world, yet they hold back from using them. They have discipline mixed with fury, intelligence mixed with passion. He paused, looking at each council member in turn. They have a saying on their world, do not poke the sleeping bear. You are about to poke something far more dangerous than any bear. But the council had made up their minds. High Arbiter Kelenoth called for a vote. One by one, each species voted to authorize military action against Earth. The humans would be given one chance to surrender and accept council authority. If they refused, their world would be occupied by force. The vote was unanimous, except for Zektar's people. The Catherians, who abstained. As the meeting ended, Zektar walked slowly back to his ship. He knew what was coming, and he knew the council was making the biggest mistake in galactic history. The humans would not surrender, and when they fought back, the galaxy would never be the same. He activated his private communication device and sent a coded message to Earth. The message was simple. They come. Prepare for war. Far away on a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system, the message was received by people who had been waiting for this moment. They had known this day would come, and they were ready. 3 months had passed since Zektar sent his warning message to Earth. The message had reached the right people, and humanity had been preparing for what was coming. Deep in underground bunkers and hidden bases scattered across Earth and its colonies, military leaders worked day and night to get ready for the storm that was heading their way. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the U.S. Liberty, humanity's most advanced warship. The ship floated in the dark space beyond Pluto, watching and waiting. Lisa was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She had been in the military for 30 years, and she knew how to read the signs of approaching danger. The bridge around her buzzed with quiet activity. Officers sat at their stations, monitoring screens full of numbers and charts. The ship's engines hummed softly, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. Everyone knew that today might be the day that would change everything for the human race. Ensign Bobby Chun sat at the communications station, his young face focused on the displays in front of him. He had joined the Earth Defense Force only 2 years ago, fresh out of the academy with dreams of exploring the stars. Now he was about to face something no human had ever encountered before. "Admiral," Bobby called out suddenly, his voice tight. With tension, "I'm picking up multiple contacts on the long-range sensors. They're big, and they're coming fast." Lisa moved quickly to the tactical station, where Commander Alex Rodriguez was already pulling up the sensor data. Alex was a short, stocky man with dark hair and steady hands. He had served with Lisa for over 10 years, and she trusted his judgment completely. "How many ships, Alex?" Lisa asked, her voice calm despite the racing of her heart. Alex's fingers danced over the controls, pulling up more detailed information. "Initial count shows 47 vessels, Admiral. Each one is approximately 3 times the size of our largest battleships. They're dropping out of hyperspace in formation." Through the bridge's main viewing screen, they could see points of light appearing in the darkness. The lights grew larger as the alien ships materialized from whatever method they used to travel faster than light. The ships were huge, their hulls gleaming with a strange metallic shine that reflected the distant light of the sun. The alien fleet arranged itself in a perfect formation, like a wall of metal and energy stretching across space. Each ship was different in design, representing the various species that made up the Galactic Council. Some were long and sleek like knives. Others were round and bulky like floating fortresses. All of them bristled with weapons that could destroy entire cities with a single shot. "They're trying to communicate," Bobby reported, his hands working quickly at his station. "The signal is being translated through our universal protocols." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at the face of something that was definitely not human. The creature had skin like gray leather, eyes that glowed red in the darkness, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, its voice was cold and without emotion, like a machine pretending to be alive. "Primitive humans of Earth," the alien said, each word carefully pronounced. "I am Fleet Commander Vel Haran of the Dominion Alliance. You are hereby ordered to submit to Galactic Council authority. Surrender your military assets immediately and prepare your world for occupation. Any resistance will result in the complete sterilization of your planet." The bridge fell silent except for the humming of the ship's systems. Every person present understood what they had just heard. This was not a request or a negotiation. It was an ultimatum backed by enough firepower to turn Earth into a lifeless rock floating in space. Lisa stepped forward, her back straight and her voice steady. She had spent her entire career preparing for moments like this, though she had never imagined it would involve aliens from across the galaxy. "This is Admiral Lisa Carter of the United Earth Defense Force," she said, looking directly into the alien's glowing red eyes. "Earth is a sovereign world with the right to govern itself. We reject your ultimatum completely and demand that you withdraw from our space immediately." Vel Haran's expression did not change, but something flickered in those red eyes that might have been surprise. Most species, when faced with such overwhelming force, chose to surrender rather than face destruction. The fact that these humans were refusing to bow down was unexpected. "Your ignorance of galactic law is noted, Admiral Carter," Vel Haran replied, his voice growing colder. "You have one of your Earth hours to reconsider your position. After that time expires, we will demonstrate the price of defying the Galactic Council." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence once again. Lisa looked around at her crew, seeing fear in their eyes, but also something else. There was determination there, and anger, and a stubborn refusal to give up that was purely human. "Lieutenant Danny Walsh," Lisa called out to her communications officer, "transmit emergency protocols to all Earth defense installations. Use priority alpha channels." Danny's fingers flew over his controls. "Yes, Admiral." All stations are receiving and acknowledging. Commander Rodriguez, Lisa continued, contact Luna Base and Mars Station. Tell them we are going to Protocol 7. Alex's eyes widened slightly. Protocol 7 was humanity's most desperate contingency plan, something they had hoped never to use. It meant total mobilization of every military asset humanity possessed, including weapons and tactics that had never been tested in real combat. Admiral, Bobby called out from his station, I'm detecting energy buildups across their fleet. Their weapons are charging. Lisa nodded grimly. The aliens had made their intentions clear. They expected humanity to roll over and surrender like frightened animals. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Red alert throughout the entire system, Lisa ordered. All ships, all stations, prepare for combat. Today we show them what the human race is really made of. Alarms began sounding throughout the ship as the crew prepared for battle. In the distance, the alien fleet continued to charge their weapons, confident that one demonstration of their power would be enough to bring the humans to their knees. But they did not understand what they were facing. They had studied human technology and found it primitive. They had analyzed human military tactics and found them simple. What they had failed to understand was the human spirit, the refusal to surrender even when facing impossible odds. The hour was almost up, and both sides prepared for a conflict that would change the galaxy forever. The hour passed like a countdown to the end of the world. When it expired, Fleet Commander Velaran gave the order that would forever change how the galaxy viewed humanity. Energy beams brighter than lightning shot out from the alien ships, striking Earth's outer defense platforms with devastating force. The orbital stations that protected Earth had been built over decades, massive structures of metal and concrete that housed thousands of weapons and defensive systems. In seconds, they were turned into expanding clouds of glowing debris. The alien weapons cut through the strongest materials humanity had ever created, like they were made of paper. Vel Haran watched the destruction on his command screen with satisfaction. His four-armed tactical officer reported casualty numbers that climbed into the thousands as the defense platforms died. This was how all conflicts with primitive species ended, with a quick demonstration of superior firepower, followed by immediate surrender. Begin Phase 2, Valheron ordered, his voice calm and confident. Target their military installations on the planet's surface. Once their ability to fight is destroyed, they will have no choice but to submit. But as the alien fleet moved closer to Earth to begin bombardment of the planet itself, something unexpected happened. Space around them suddenly filled with new contacts, ships and weapons appearing from places that should have been empty vacuum. Captain Ryan Johnson commanded the UEC Defiance from inside a hollowed-out asteroid that had been drifting in the belt between Mars and Jupiter for months. His ship and dozens of others, like it, had been hidden there, waiting for exactly this moment. The asteroids had been carefully modified to look natural, while concealing some of humanity's most advanced warships. All stealth units, this is Defiance Actual. Ryan spoke into his radio, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. Time to show these aliens what guerrilla warfare looks like when you take it to space. All ships, engage at will. The alien fleet found themselves under attack from directions they had never considered. Human ships emerged from hiding spots throughout the solar system, places no civilized species would have thought to use as military bases. They came from inside asteroid fields, from behind moons, from the shadows of planets, and from deep space where they had been drifting dark and silent for weeks. The human ships were smaller than the alien vessels, but they moved faster and hit harder than anything Valheron had expected. They fired nuclear torpedoes that exploded with the force of small suns, kinetic rounds that traveled at impossible speeds, and experimental energy weapons that tore holes in alien hulls. On Mars, Colonel Amy Stevens coordinated the defense of humanity's first colony world while simultaneously managing the evacuation of civilian populations to underground shelters. Mars had been more than just a colony. It had been turned into a fortress world, bristling with hidden weapons that the aliens had never detected. Sector 7, deploy the magnetic railguns. Amy ordered into her headset while watching tactical displays that showed the battle raging in space above. Sector 12, launch all drone swarms. Make every shot count. Magnetic railguns hidden beneath the Martian surface opened fire, sending metal projectiles toward the alien fleet at speeds that made them nearly impossible to intercept. Clouds of robotic drones swarmed out of concealed launch bays, each one carrying enough explosive power to damage ships 1,000 times their size. The aliens quickly realized that their intelligence about human military capabilities had been completely wrong. These humans did not fight like any species the Galactic Council had ever encountered. They used tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare, turning their own ships into weapons and sacrificing themselves to damage. Enemy vessels. Lieutenant Commander Pete Williams piloted a small fighter craft that had been loaded with experimental antimatter charges. His mission was simple and suicidal: get close enough to an alien command ship to deliver a weapon that would destroy both the target and himself. "Control, this is Ghost Rider." Pete spoke calmly into his radio as enemy fire exploded around his ship. "I have visual on the target. Tell my wife Sarah that I love her, and tell my kids that Daddy went to fight the monsters so they could grow up free." Pete's fighter dove through a storm of alien weapons fire, its small size and incredible speed making it difficult to hit. He could see the bridge of the alien flagship growing larger on his screen, the place where Vel Aran was probably standing and wondering how his perfect invasion had gone so wrong. The antimatter charges detonated against the alien ship's hull. With a flash that could be seen from Earth, the flagship's entire forward section disappeared, taking the command crew and most of the ship's weapons with it. Pete Williams had traded his life for a victory that sent shockwaves through the alien fleet. Similar acts of desperate courage were happening throughout the battle zone. Human pilots flew suicide missions against ships 10 times their size. Human engineers triggered explosions that turned disabled human vessels into massive bombs. Human soldiers fought with a ferocity that the aliens had never seen before, even when facing certain death. Back on the surviving alien command ship, Vel Haran stared at his tactical displays in growing horror. Half of his fleet was either destroyed or severely damaged, and the humans showed no signs of slowing down their attacks. This was supposed to be a quick demonstration of power, not a real war. "Commander," his communications officer called out. With panic in his voice, "We are receiving a priority transmission from Ambassador Zektar's ship." When Zektar appeared on the main screen, his scaled face showed no surprise at what was happening. He had tried to warn them, and now they were paying the price for their arrogance. "I told you not to wake the sleeping giant," Zektar said quietly, his yellow eyes reflecting the fires of dying ships outside. "The humans do not fight for territory or resources like other species. They fight for survival, and when a human fights for survival, they become something beyond your ability to understand or defeat." Vel Haran's red eyes blazed with fury and fear. "How was I supposed to know they would fight like maniacs? No civilized species acts this way." "That is exactly the point," Zektar replied. "They are not civilized in the way you understand civilization. They are something else entirely, something that makes them more dangerous than any weapon you could build." The battle continued to rage around them, with human ships appearing and disappearing like ghosts, striking at the alien fleet with weapons and tactics that seemed to come from nightmares rather than military academies. 2 weeks had passed since the alien invasion began, and what should have been a quick victory had turned into a nightmare for the Galactic Council fleet. Of the 47 ships that had arrived with such confidence, only 19 remained operational. The rest were either destroyed completely or floating dead in space, their crews evacuated to the surviving vessels. Fleet Commander Velharan sat in his temporary command center aboard a Catherian ship, since his own flagship had been destroyed. In the early days of the conflict, his red eyes were dim with exhaustion and something he had never felt before in his long military career: fear. The humans were not fighting like any species he had studied, and every day brought new horrors that challenged everything he thought he knew about warfare. General Kevin Murphy operated from a hidden command bunker built deep beneath the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. The facility had been constructed in secret over many years, designed to survive even direct nuclear strikes. From this underground fortress, Kevin coordinated Earth's defense with the cold precision of a man who understood that the survival of his entire species depended on every decision he made. Kevin was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his younger days as a frontline soldier. He had fought in conflicts across Earth before humanity knew that aliens existed, and those experiences had taught him that desperate times required desperate measures. Now he faced the ultimate desperate time. "Ma'am," reported intelligence officer Susan Clark, looking up from her computer screens, "our pattern analysis shows that the aliens rely heavily on centralized command structures. Their ships cannot operate effectively without constant communication with their fleet commanders." Kevin studied the holographic display that showed the current positions of all known alien vessels. The enemy fleet had retreated to a defensive position near Jupiter, using the massive planet's electromagnetic field to help mask their communications from human interceptors. "What do you need to disrupt their command network?" Kevin asked, his voice quiet but intense. Susan pulled up another set of data on her screens. "Permission to deploy the Ghost Protocol assets, sir. We have been holding them in reserve because the technology is still experimental, but this might be our best chance to end this war." Kevin's expression grew darker as he considered the request. Ghost Protocol represented humanity's most classified military development, ships equipped with experimental quantum drives that could teleport short distances through space. The technology was dangerous and barely tested, with a failure rate that made it almost as deadly to the users as to their enemies. "How many ships do we have ready for Ghost Protocol deployment?" Kevin asked. 6 vessels, sir. Captain Helen Price commands the lead ship, the U.E.'s Phantom. She has been training with the quantum drives for 2 years and knows the risks better than anyone. Kevin nodded slowly. The Ghost Protocol ships were humanity's secret weapon, something they had developed based on theoretical physics that most alien species considered impossible. If the technology worked as designed, it could change the course of the war. If it failed, they would lose 6 of their best ships and crews. "Approved," Kevin said finally. "Contact Captain Price and tell her it is time to field test her toys." In actual combat, in space near Jupiter, the remaining alien fleet maintained a tight defensive formation. Velharan had learned to respect human tactical abilities after 2 weeks of constant attacks, but he felt relatively safe behind Jupiter's massive bulk. The electromagnetic interference from the giant planet made it impossible for human ships to approach without being detected well in advance. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we are detecting unusual quantum fluctuations near the moon Europa. The readings do not match any known human technology." Velharan frowned as he studied the sensor data. The fluctuations were unlike anything in the Galactic Council's databases, which contained information about every known method of faster-than-light travel and energy manipulation. Before he could order an investigation, 6 human ships materialized directly inside his fleet's defensive perimeter. The vessels appeared out of nowhere, violating every law of physics that Velharan understood. One moment empty space surrounded his ships, and the next moment human warships were among them, already firing their weapons at point-blank range. Captain Helen Price stood on the bridge of the UES Phantom as reality twisted around her ship during the quantum jump. The sensation was indescribable, like being turned inside out while falling through a tunnel made of lightning. When the jump completed, she found herself looking at the bridge of an alien command vessel through her main viewing screen. "This is Captain Helen Price of the UES Phantom," she announced over all radio frequencies as her ship launched its payload directly into the alien vessel's communication array. "Welcome to Earth space, where we make the impossible happen on a daily basis." The quantum teleportation assault achieved complete surprise. The Ghost Protocol ships had appeared where no ship should have been able to reach, bypassing every defensive system the aliens possessed. Their weapons struck vital targets before the enemy could react, destroying communication networks and command centers with surgical precision. Within minutes, the alien fleet's ability to coordinate their movements had been completely shattered. Individual ships found themselves isolated and confused, unable to communicate with their commanders or coordinate their defensive efforts. The disciplined formation that had protected them dissolved into chaos, not human forces that had been waiting in the outer system immediately pressed their advantage. Ships emerged from hiding places throughout the asteroid belt in the moons of the outer planets, converging on the scattered alien vessels like wolves attacking a broken herd. Admiral Lisa Carter, commanding the human fleet from the rebuilt UES Liberty, watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The aliens had started this war with overwhelming numerical and technological advantages, but they had not understood what they were truly fighting against. "All ships, this is Admiral Carter," she broadcast to the human fleet. "The enemy is broken and scattered. Press the attack, but remember the rules of engagement. Any ship that attempts to surrender will be accepted. We are not monsters, even if we fight like them when we have to." The surviving alien ships found themselves picked off one by human forces that seemed to appear and disappear at will. Some attempted to flee toward the edge of the solar system, only to discover that human ships were already waiting for them. Others tried to make final desperate attacks on Earth itself, but found their path blocked by defensive forces that had grown stronger rather than weaker during the long battle. As the last alien resistance crumbled, Velharan made a decision that would have been unthinkable when the invasion began. He ordered his remaining ships to surrender, transmitting the universal signal for ceasefire on all frequencies. The war was over, but both sides knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger story. 6 months had passed since the alien invasion ended with humanity's unexpected victory. The news of what had happened in the Sol system had spread across the galaxy like wildfire, carried by surviving alien crew members and Catherian observers who had witnessed the impossible. The species that was supposed to be easily conquered had instead shattered the most powerful fleet the Galactic Council had ever assembled. The great chamber of the Galactic Council looked very different now. Where once there had been arrogant confidence and casual dismissal of lesser species, now there was nervous tension and careful whispered conversations. Representatives who had once laughed at the idea of human resistance now spoke in hushed tones about the species that had proven capable of achieving the impossible. Ambassador Zektar walked to the center platform once again, but this time he was not alone. Beside him stood a human woman wearing the simple blue uniform of the United Earth Federation. Ambassador Patricia Hayes was the first human to ever address the Galactic Council, and her presence commanded attention in a way that had nothing to do with intimidation and everything to do with earned respect. Patricia was a middle-aged woman with brown hair streaked with gray and eyes that held the quiet confidence of someone who had seen her species survive its greatest trial. She had been a diplomat before the war, working to establish peaceful contact with alien civilizations. Now she represented a humanity that had proven its worth in the most brutal way possible. High Arbiter Kelenoth raised his crystal arm for silence, his ancient voice carrying a tone of respect that had been absent during Zektar's previous warnings. Honored members of the Council, we are gathered today to address the events of the past months and to determine how we shall proceed with our relationship to the human species. The chamber fell silent as Patricia stepped forward. She had prepared for this moment for weeks, knowing that her words would help determine whether humanity's future would be one of peace or continued conflict. Behind her calm exterior, she carried the weight of 6 billion human lives and the responsibility of speaking for a species that had proven it would never accept subjugation. Honored Arbiter, members of the Council, Patricia began, her voice clear and steady. I stand before you today, not as a conquered species begging for mercy, but as the representative of a sovereign civilization that has earned its place among the stars through trial by fire. She activated a small device that projected a holographic display above the platform. The images showed the current state of human space, and what the Council members saw made many of them shift uncomfortably in their seats. Where once there had been a single solar system with primitive defenses, now there were multiple star systems connected by a growing network of human colonies and military installations. In the months since your invasion, Patricia continued, humanity has accelerated its space development by decades rather than years. We now possess technologies and capabilities that rival any member of this council. The choice you face today is simple. Accept us as equals in this galaxy, or face the consequences of continued hostility. Councillor Vexon, who had been among the most vocal advocates for human conquest, spoke with none of his previous arrogance. Ambassador Hayes, what guarantee do we have that humanity will not use its proven military capabilities to threaten Council worlds? Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to general and serving as Patricia's military advisor, stepped forward with a slight smile. Jake had been one of the officers who observed the original Council meeting through hidden surveillance, and he remembered every word of their dismissive comments about human capabilities. Counselor, Jake said quietly, humanity operates under a principle we call proportional response. We do not start conflicts, but we certainly finish them. Leave us in peace, and you will find us to be valuable trading partners and allies. Threaten us again, and you will discover that our recent defensive actions were restrained compared to what we are truly capable of. The implication hung in the air like a storm cloud. The humans had defeated a Galactic Council fleet while fighting defensively in their own solar system. What might they accomplish if they decided to take the offensive and carry the war to Council worlds? Ambassador Zektar spoke for the first time since the session began. I tried to warn this council about the nature of humanity. They do not fight like other species. They do not think like other species. They adapt and overcome obstacles that would defeat civilizations with far more advanced technology. Over the following days, negotiations took place that would fundamentally reshape galactic politics. Treaties were written that granted humanity full membership in the Galactic Council with voting rights equal to any other species. Trade agreements were established that would bring human innovation and determination and bear on problems that had stymied other civilizations for centuries. But perhaps more importantly, the Council species began to understand that their assumptions about technological superiority and civilized warfare had been dangerously naive. The humans had shown them that creativity, adaptability, and sheer stubborn determination could overcome seemingly impossible odds. Admiral Lisa Carter, now serving as humanity's chief of galactic defense, established the Human Defense Corps as a military organization that would ensure no species would ever again mistake humanity's peaceful intentions for weakness. The Defense Corps would serve as both a deterrent to potential aggressors and a force for stability. In a galaxy that was still coming to terms with the new reality, General Kevin Murphy was promoted to oversee the development of humanity's interstellar capabilities. Under his guidance, human engineers began sharing some of their technologies with other species while carefully protecting the most sensitive military secrets. The quantum drive technology that had proven so devastating during the war remained strictly classified. Known only to a select few. Captain Helen Price became the commander of humanity's first interstellar exploration fleet, leading missions to establish peaceful contact with species that had not been part of the invasion force. Her experiences with the experimental quantum drives made her uniquely qualified to push the boundaries of what was possible in space exploration. As Patricia Hayes stood on the observation deck of the new UES Enterprise, humanity's first true interstellar vessel, she reflected on how much had changed. Earth was no longer an isolated world threatened by hostile aliens, but part of a vast galactic community where humanity had earned its place through courage and sacrifice. Viewing windows, she could see ships from a dozen different species working together on joint exploration missions. What had begun as a war of conquest had evolved into an opportunity for cooperation and mutual understanding. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity not through fear alone, but through recognition of their potential as partners in shaping the future. The warning had been ignored, the challenge had been accepted, and humanity had responded exactly as Zektar had predicted they would. They had adapted, they had endured, and they had prevailed. Now the galaxy would never be the same. And perhaps that was exactly what it needed.